welcome back to this week's episode of Outside the Arena. I'm Griffin Senek, joined alongside my co-host Devin Bernstein, and we're back. NFL playoffs underway now. The divisional round set to first kick of the weekend is, I believe, in 5 hours or so between the Texans and the Ravens. From when we're filming this, the NBA, we had some trades this week. Pascal Siakam now an Indiana Pacer. We're going to catch up on some other NBA news as well from the past few weeks. But yeah, I mean, it's been a another good week. Antonio Pierce now the full-time head coach of the Raiders as well. So congrats to him, well deserved. But we're going to start with the NFL and the wild card round. Kind of, from a pure competitive game standpoint, not the best weekend outside of Lions Rams, but some good games and some surprises nonetheless. And we'll kick things off with the first game of the week. Houston and the Browns. We both had the Browns in this one, I believe. And boy, were we wrong. I mean, I don't think I would have predicted, Cleveland's defense giving up that many points. I mean, they just got absolutely picked apart by CJ Stroud, who has quickly and firmly established himself, it feels like, as a top 10 quarterback, maybe even higher, top five. You could probably argue at this point, which is crazy. Yeah, 45-14. The Flacco magic runs out. He throws two pick sixes. I mean, a bit of a nightmare at the end, but your thoughts overall on this game and kind of, why you think the Texans were able to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans they just can't stop surprising me at this point. I
Yeah,
mean, like Stroud, like you said, I mean, besides saying he's better than Mahomes and probably like a Lamar, maybe an Allen, but besides those guys, it's like I could hear out an argument that he's in that top five like group right now, which is so rare and
yeah,
crazy to think of because to be honest, when Stroud was coming out, I didn't think he was someone who would ever be a top five guy. I thought he would be good, but I just didn't think he had the arm, the play extension ability. But, you know, I think the best way to put it with Stroud is this is Georgia game Stroud, and we get it every
yeah,
week. It's awesome. I mean, he has first of all, I've never been so I wouldn't say misled because part of this is my own scouting, but I mean, his arm is just way stronger than it was advertised as. Like he just throws these moon balls 60 yards down the field with like no problem. Like he's got a great arm. He has some of the best touch in the NFL. He's, always knows how to extend the play when necessary, but he doesn't leave the pocket too early very often, that's a very tough middle ground to find for veteran quarterbacks, let alone rookies.
yeah,
Um, and he's athletic enough. Like everything is good here with Stroud, and it's like you're obviously missing Tank Dell, but Nico Collins is like a true number one receiver, it looks like. This line is pretty good, and their pass rush is pretty strong. The Browns tackles are not, starters or backups even really. They're
yeah,
like third string guys. Um, I don't even really I know one of them was maybe like a Hubbard or like a Blake
yeah. Like I think James Hudson maybe
James
was out
Hudson
there.
and yeah, I don't even
There was
know.
some randos, yeah. But I think one of them got hurt, maybe two, I don't know. Well, Batonio got hurt, I guess. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, probably.
So a bit of a mess there, but it's like you've got Grenard who had I think 12 sacks and Will Anderson
Yeah,
who's been really good as a rookie. Stingley is getting better. This is a team that has a lot of cap space. So just a ton of optimism going forward for the Texans, who now cemented that they will have a lower pick from their first round pick than the Browns pick, which to me means something because, they chose to give up their own pick as opposed to the Browns pick in that trade up for Will Anderson. And I was like, what's the world where they're better than the
yeah,
Browns? And apparently it's this world. So before I go on for too long, I just can't be more impressed by the Texans. For the Browns, I mean, yeah. I mean, this is what happens when, you're down to your fourth quarterback of the year. I would I would say I was more surprised by their defensive performance than their offensive performance. Tough game for the secondary. Uh, some missed coverages,
Yeah.
some blown assignments, stuff like that. You just can't be having in a playoff game when you're that reliant on your defense. It was a little bit closer than the score suggested, two pick sixes. It was close at, around half. I mean, like, look, this is the Browns. They've built a great team, but they needed, to have a healthy and good quarterback. And it's like they couldn't get consistently healthy and good quarterback play, which is just, it's really tough to win in this league when you don't have that, especially when you're paying a guy a ton of money. Especially next year and the coming years when the roster is going to be much harder to keep together. Um, I'd want to say it's a bleak outlook for the Browns, but it kind of is because they're going to be in a tough cap situation. I don't know. I don't see them being better than this year unless their quarterback situation improves, which I feel like is semi unlikely. I kind of feel like Deshaun is what he is at this point. Um, but yeah, I mean, good season for the Browns, but it's still a little bit like, uh-oh, like we kind of
Yeah.
need to win this year. Um, and yeah, as for the Texans, we'll talk about it more with our game predictions, but like, I mean, they have a chance in this game. Like, I
Yeah.
really believe that. Like, I may pick the Ravens, but I'm not disrespecting the Texans at this point. Um, you just can't overstate how awesome this has been. This is just so fun to watch as an NFL fan. And I would be it would be so cool to see a rookie quarterback in the Super Bowl. That's my final thoughts on this game. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I was pulling for Cleveland, tough one, but the Texans just outplayed them. They were ready. I think the Browns kind of injuries just finally caught up to them a little bit. The tackles, obviously you're down like your first three, four tackles. That's a problem. The running game was non-existent in this one for them, which, for the last few years with Chubb has been their staple. So it just, it put a lot of pressure on Flacco, which, I was just like, you knew the interception or two was coming, like with him, and like you accept that. And I don't think he was terrible. He started off playing pretty well. That defense. I mean, they just didn't give him a chance at the end of the day. Blown coverages. I mean, outside of JOK, like no one on that defense really, put up a strong performance. Miles Garrett was held in check. Like it was a disappointing performance for sure. For Houston, um, yeah, Stroud's just that guy. Like he really is. He is it's crazy how good he is, and the future there is just so bright. I mean, they're going to be really good for a really long time. I think they've, you know, for a long time or last few years at least with, the Jaguars, everyone was, you know, had the idea at least that they were going to run that division for a while, and it's, they had 1 year at the top, and now it's all of a sudden you got CJ Stroud there, and it feels like, he's just, miles above the pack. And obviously you've still got Will Levis, you've still got Anthony Richardson, so that division's going to be really competitive. But it feels like the Texans are in a very good spot, like you mentioned with the cap space. It seems like the players really love D'Amico Ryans. I think they're going to, you know, not going to have a hard time getting people there to Texas. You got the low taxes. Like I think the desirable place to be at the end of the day. And I think the culture there is great. I mean, I think you just see it. And like you mentioned with the trade, like on draft night when that trade went down, I could not believe that the Texans gave up their own first round pick. Like I was because I thought Stroud would be good, but I just the rest of the roster didn't really seem to be complete whatsoever. Um, and I really did think I think we both did thought that pick was going to be top five, at least top 10. And now the fact that it's going to be the Cleveland pick is better than their own is just crazy. So props to them. It kind of felt like almost like you said that this was kind of the Browns' year. They put a lot together. Obviously, Andrew Berry, I think, is one of the best at salary cap manipulation. Him and I don't know the Saints GM, but that guy's a
Mickey
wizard.
Loomis. Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
genius.
he's ridiculous. So if anyone can figure it out, it's probably Andrew Barry. So I think Cleveland will figure it out. They'll be okay. But yeah, absolutely. And that core is aging. Miles Garrett, Chubb's now got the who knows, how good Nick Chubb's going to be, unfortunately. Deshaun, we're now in year 3 of the deal next year. We still don't know if he's can play, which is not good. Um, so a lot of answers for Cleveland, but for Houston, just even if they lose, what a season! The future's so bright, and um, yeah, I mean they're gonna be a very good team. I mean, the AFC has got some incredible quarterbacks. I mean, compared to the NFC, it's pretty crazy how it feels like they all end up in the AFC. But um, I wonder. I guess Caleb will probably be in the NFC. Yeah, unless the Patriots trade up, which maybe that'll happen. I don't know. It's crazy. Moving along, Chiefs Dolphins. This game, obviously the cold weather kind of, I think, took the forefront of the news, but Kansas City looked good. I mean, they defensively they did what they've done all the year. I mean, they've got a really great defense, and offensively, Rashee Rice 130 yards, Kelsey 7 catches, 71 yards. He had a few drops, but look, I think everyone was going to drop some balls in that weather. The ball was probably rock solid, so you know, I think that's not something to worry about. Mahomes, didn't turn over the ball. It's a really good performance from him. Tua, on the other hand, just really felt like he couldn't get it going. You know, just a bad game from Miami all around. Your thoughts on this one? I mean, it wasn't really competitive per se. It felt like the Chiefs were kind of always in the driver's seat, but your thoughts on this and kind of just the end of the Dolphins season, which obviously did not go very well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I go back to the beginning of the year when I think it was our first podcast episode, and I
Yeah.
said I didn't think the Dolphins would be very good. And I looked so stupid from that, especially around the Broncos game.
Yeah.
But it's like I think my concerns were pretty warranted. You got a full healthy season out of Tua, but he really slowed down the second half of the year. He really struggles to make plays when, things break down. He's great in the structure of the offense, but just the playmaking gene is not quite there. He doesn't quite have the athleticism, doesn't have the arm, doesn't have the wherewithal to know exactly when to leave the pocket, whatever. It's not easy, obviously. He's still a good quarterback, but that hurts. And this defense ultimately was just super, super banged up. They were missing their top 3 edge rushers. They were starting like Melvin Ingram and Justin
Yeah.
Houston off the edge. Like that's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Dolphins are an interesting spot. It feels like probably let Tua play out the year on the 5th-year deal, and then you reevaluate it next season. Um, I wouldn't be comfortable giving him a big contract, man. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
As for the Chiefs, like, you know, seeing Kelsey get going a little bit and seeing Rashee Rice really dominate, seeing Mahomes in the cold weather, I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Like, we're back. Um, but we'll get more into it with the divisional game, but this is Mahomes' first road playoff game. Like, this is insane. That's just an insane stat. I think I might have brought it up
Yeah.
last week, but I'll continue to bring it up. Um, I mean, I I I I don't know. The Chiefs defense is really, really good. They're gonna keep them in every game, and you have the best quarterback in the world. You have one of the best tight ends, one of the best safety blankets in the world, and you have this up and coming slot receiver with a pretty solid offensive line. Like they ran the ball a lot. They were committed to the run, which is something Andy Reid struggled with, as long as I can remember back when he was the Eagles coach, he wouldn't commit to the run with LaShawn McCoy. Um, you know, I just you don't want to count the Chiefs out, man. That's all I'm gonna say. I kind of did a little bit in my head as true Super Bowl contenders, but in this year where it feels like kind of anyone could come out of the AFC, I still feel like they've got a real shot here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think they're, you watch that game and you're like, okay, yeah, like I mean, you don't want to buy into it too much, but like, there's just something about this team. I think come January, February, where they just know there's so many guys on this team that just have the experience. Even the guys who have been there for a year. I mean, they played in the Super Bowl last year, so it's like these guys all have experience. They know what they're doing. And it's where Mahomes shines. And I think this weekend will be super interesting going to Buffalo. I think that's as tough a spot as you could be. Obviously, weather wise, the Chiefs are used to it, so it's not going to be. I think there might be snow or there's snow on the field now or something. I don't know. It's Buffalo. I mean, the Bills Mafia is out there shoveling, but um, I think this weekend will be super interesting. But look, they looked good. I still think this team desperately needs help at wide receiver in the offseason. I think they know that. But Rashee Rice is one of them ones. He's going to be a really good player for a really long time. Um, I think his stats probably get a little inflated because he's basically the only one that can catch the football. But he's a really good player. Um, I'm not, I think the game against the Bills, I mean, it's these two teams feels like they match up every year in the playoffs, and it's a classic. So I'm excited for that game. I think it's what tomorrow night's game, the nightcap. Yeah. So we got to wait a little bit for that one. For Miami, disappointing, really disappointing into the season after the start. I think the story of it is just they just weren't good enough to beat the big team. They just couldn't get it done against the elite of the NFL at the end of the day. They were really good against, that middle tier and below, but they just weren't on that level. And, does it come down to quarterback play? Tua in those big games. I don't want to bash on him too much. I think this week with the weather, like, when you're a team from Miami, like, and you're playing in those conditions, like that is a problem. And it's like, you're kind of screwed. Like there's not much you can really do to prepare, especially, Tua played at Alabama and then he went to Miami. So Tua's not a guy that's played many cold weather games. So I do like give him somewhat of a pass for this week because I don't think it's all his fault. But just throughout the season, it just felt like in the big moment, that Tennessee game comes to mind, which, they're not even that good, but just down the stretch, like in that last drive, just like kind of was a disaster. Like, I just don't think he has the clutch gene, or we've seen that. We haven't seen that in the NFL, and I think that's a huge problem. I think that's the reason why they, weren't able to win the division and, yeah, obviously got blown out here. But the future is still bright. Tyreek Hill is still there. He's a great player, obviously. Waddle, I would assume that A-Chain takes over the backfield next year mostly. Mostert is kind of old, so it's kind of remarkable he was doing what he was doing at age 31. But they got a lot of talent. I think defense is, they got to fill in the middle gaps. You have the big names. You got the Jalen Ramseys, the Bradley Chubbs, the Xavier Howards. Jalen Phillips has kind of become one of those guys. Christian Wilkins. But I just think that middle kind of tier of guys is not good enough, and that defense, especially at the end, obviously when you had all those guys, with torn Achilles or ACLs or whatnot. But I think some slight improvement on the defense would be good, and this offense just got to figure it out in the big moment, because they haven't proven that they can. And Tyreek Hill too, not to bash him, but it just felt like he started off so hot, and maybe that's like what you said, like the Dolphins got out to this roaring start, and then they kind of sputtered, and it felt like that kind of corresponded with Tyreek's yards and receptions kind of going down. And I'm not saying that Tyreek's fault, but I think they got to probably should have made a even more of an effort to get Tyreek the ball, because I think he's just that good. And obviously, I know he dealt with some the injuries towards the end of the year, but I don't know, just a random thought. But I think we can move on to the next game, which is one that I think you're going to enjoy talking about. Packers, Cowboys, absolute stunner. I mean, it was 27-7 at half. Just a blowout. Green Bay, Jordan Love, another one of them ones. I mean, this guy is a stud too. Put up like the exact same stat line as Stroud, which is kind of freaky. But he had a huge game. Aaron Jones, 3 touchdowns. They're finally using him. We kind of talked about that. It took an AJ Dillon being hurt for Aaron Jones to finally see the ball. So that's good for the Packers. Jair had a pick. I mean, that was awesome. Romeo Dobbs, 150 yards. You know, obviously Green Bay, huge upset, first 7 seed to ever win in the playoffs. Your thoughts on that, but also obviously, I mean, Dallas, I think, is the story. They are keeping Mike McCarthy per the reports out there. But just what went wrong for Dallas in this one? Because, I don't think anyone expected them to lose at home, after going undefeated there this season.
Yeah, I mean, this was a tough situation because I think what it really comes down to is defensively, the Cowboys were a man team this year. They wanted to run man coverage, but Jordan Love was great against man coverage this year.
Yeah.
And they came into the game and they said, we're not going to run a ton of man. We're going to kind of change who we are, try to confuse Jordan Love, get him to throw a pick or two, something like that. And it just didn't work. He shredded them. I mean, um, he Romeo Dobbs has kind of become an afterthought in this offense, but then they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I guess you can play now," and he gets 150 yards. Um, Christian Watson's kind of in and out of the lineup. He's sort of whatever, but then you've got Jaden Reed, who looks like a good up and comer. Dontavion Wicks is like a solid player. Like, there's something to be said about all these young, pretty talented receivers, kind of just collectively getting the job done.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of McCarthy, it's like this is who he is. Like, we saw this with the Packers. He's a good regular season coach. He gets you a good offense. Um, I think the players like him, but it's just like he doesn't have this big game gene in him. And it just feels like, the Cowboys were unprepared. It's so cliche, but it felt like they just wanted it less. Like,
Yeah.
I don't I don't know. Like, it just felt like they didn't come into the game thinking this is a playoff game. We have to, whoop them, like I don't know. I don't get it. And then it's just like every time the Cowboys lose, with no exception, they will put up 400 yards of garbage time offense.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't think Dak is the problem, but I don't think he's someone in a big game that you're like, this guy's going to carry us. I don't think, the run game is a problem, but I don't think it's good enough. I don't think the
Yeah.
defense is a problem, but I don't think it's ultimately good enough, especially without, Diggs. Like, I don't know. They're a bit big play dependent, especially on defense. It's more of a stars and scrubs type approach.
Yeah.
You know, you got the corners, you've got Micah, you've got Lawrence. It's like it seems like it's such a great defense, but then there's some guys starting that you're like, oh, you probably shouldn't be starting. Like, um, some of the linebackers, stuff like that. Like, I don't know. This was a very surprising result, besides for the fact that the Cowboys always seem to choke in the playoffs. I think the exact words I texted you were death taxes and Cowboys always choke
Yeah.
in this round. Um, which is really just the best way I can put it, to be honest. I mean, like, this is just always what the Cowboys do. It feels like the Packers own them in the playoffs. It also, I was thinking about this, like, why do the Packers, Niners, and Cowboys always end up playing each other in the
Yeah.
playoffs? It's some combination of those teams every year. Um, but what were your thoughts on this great, great day?
Yeah, I mean, it was I was very surprised. I thought the Cowboys were gonna win pretty handily. I think Jordan Love is the story of the game. I mean, a few weeks into the season, that Raiders game specifically, I think, a lot of people, including us, were kind of, you know, ready to almost, turn the page on him. And, we're just kind of like, okay, he sat for a few years, there's just nothing there. But I mean, he's responded, and just these last, I forget how many weeks it was, but over like the last 6 games or so, or something like that, he had like 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, or something like that. Like, just unbelievable play. And he's sent himself up to get paid. He's going to be, probably be the guy there long term, I would imagine. So props to him. And, he's doing it with, one of the, are they the youngest team in the NFL? I think
I
they are.
believe
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, which is crazy how quickly they kind of had that overturn. But even in a rebuilding year, this team has found a way to make the playoffs, make the divisional round. Um, there's a lot of young talent. I think, outside of Aaron Jones, they still do, I think, need to find someone that can replace like the Devontae Adams superstar role that, left when he left. Just because I think, a lot of those guys are great, supporting cast, but you know, can they win a Super Bowl with that group of receivers? Probably not. But there's a lot of talent. I mean, one of these guys could emerge, and Romeo Dobbs has had a great year. Obviously, it seems like Christian Watson was the guy people thought would emerge, and he's really had a bad year with injury and just whatnot. But defense played pretty well. I mean, obviously the score kind of got out of hand in garbage time. Dak threw for 400 yards, but like he didn't play very well. I mean, he struggled in the first half, and I like what you said. I think I don't think Dak's the issue. I mean, I think this was a bad game from Dak, which didn't help. But you know, again, their defense got cooked. Dak didn't put the defense in the best position sometimes to win this game, but you know, kind of is what it is, and ultimately Dallas another year in the drain. You know, this core, I think they basically still got everyone. I mean, there'll be a few like kind of veteran probably pieces that,
I think,
oh, Pollard is a free agent, I guess.
and I believe Tyron Smith might be a free agent.
Okay. So a few pieces. I mean, I think Tyron Smith's a great player, obviously. But, you know, they can probably figure it out without him, I guess is like
Like,
none of the, core key skill position. I guess Tony Pollard, but he didn't really have a good year. So,
yeah.
and with the running back market, I mean, they could probably bring him back at the end of the day if they want to. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I was surprised they get McCarthy. I just thought, with those expectations and, obviously offense was great this year, but, it just felt like, coming up short again was going to get him fired, especially with all the head coaches out there. I mean, I think as good a year as any to fire your coach. So it was a little surprised, but yeah, I don't need to keep rambling on about this one. It was definitely a fun game to watch. Very surprising. Um, Moving on to the next game. This one was the best game of the weekend for sure. Rams Lions, the Matt Stafford homecoming. I mean, Stafford played a hell of a game, got banged up throughout, threw for 367 yards, 2 touchdowns. Puka Nacua, 181 yards receiving. I mean, pretty crazy. It's crazy how Cooper Kupp also this year is just like the downturn in production. Like he had 5 catches, 27 yards. I mean, I don't know if it's age, injury, or just like because it was. I don't want to say it was like his year was his crazy, Triple Crown year was a fluke because that's it's impossible to do that. But a little bit of product of the system potentially. But Jared Goff gets it done. Lions win their first playoff game in I don't even know how many years. It's 50 years, something like that. Or am I off? It's been a
I don't
while.
know. We weren't
Um,
alive.
yeah, we definitely weren't alive. I don't know. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, 2 sacks. Jared Goff kind of got it done. Your thoughts on this one? And I think we both had picked the Rams last week, so there you go, another outside the arena first
Um,
there.
yeah, I mean, like the Lions are just they're so maximized, it feels like they're about as good as they could possibly be on both sides of the ball in terms of like their talent. It's just not super incredible, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is a stud. I mean, just a stud. Um, and obviously we'll talk about Puka Nacua in a sec, but this offense is just really dynamic. They have good playmakers everywhere. Goff is the perfect point guard, and they're so well coached. Ben Johnson's absolutely got to be a head coach in this league, in my opinion. Um, and their defense was just good enough. Um, what I will say is on that 3rd and 14 play, the Rams' last drive, I believe it was. I don't love going for the first down exactly where they were because it was kind of a low percentage play where if you don't get it, you have to punt it away to a great running team that could just run out the clock, which they did, I
Yeah,
believe. The Rams didn't get the ball back, right?
no, they didn't.
Okay. So, you if you get like 7 yards, you could kick a field goal. If you get 10 yards, you could go for it. If you get 5 yards, you could go for it. I just think getting a short, safer gain in that situation is a much better play than going for the first down where you have to punt it away and risk not getting the ball back if you don't get it. I don't know. Hindsight's obviously 2020. Like, I don't want to dwell on what Sean McVay's decision was versus what my decision would be. Like, obviously, Sean McVay has forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. But I just wondered, like, was that necessarily the best move in that situation?
Yeah,
Besides that, gutsy performance from Stafford. Um, Obviously, Puka Nacua is just a stud, man. Like, I was thinking about this, like, there's no receiver really like him. Like, he's like kind of like a physical, ball winner type, but then he's also like this slot separator type, and he's an incredible blocker, and he is great after the catch. Like, he's a beast. I think he's gonna
yeah.
be a stud. I think Cooper Cup now becomes I don't think Cooper Cup has another like 1,200 yard season. I'll be honest.
No,
I don't think he has another great season in him. Um,
he's up there in age at this.
he
He's
is
like
up there,
30 probably, right?
yeah, he's also dealt with his fair share of injuries.
Yeah, he'll
Yeah,
be 31 next year. Yeah.
yeah. So I wouldn't even be surprised if he gets like cut, traded.
That's I don't know about that. They love Cooper Cup there.
They do love Cooper Cup. I don't know. The Rams are in an
He's not
interesting
that
spot.
bad. I don't think he's
No,
that
not
bad, but
not because he's bad, but he's
just the
probably on
money
a
wise.
massive contract, right?
Yeah, but they probably can't even cut him because of it. He's probably got so
That's
much
true.
guarantee.
That's true. That's definitely true. Um, I don't know. Cooper Cup's future is something to look out for, would be something I would say. Not, I don't, you're right. I don't think he gets cut, but could they try to restructure something? I don't
Yeah,
know. As, I don't know. The Rams are a good team. It just feels like they're missing like one more star, like a star edge rusher, a star
yeah,
offensive lineman, like someone who could really help dominate in the trenches. Maybe an offensive lineman could be huge for them just because that line is older and, not super talented.
yeah,
But they're a good team. They surprised everyone this year. I expect them to honestly have a similar season next year. They
yeah,
drafted really well. Obviously, like Nakua, Kyron Williams 2 years ago, some of the defensive linemen, some of the defensive backs. They've picked up guys off the street who've been productive. Like, they're gonna figure it out, I think. I think they'll be fine, but obviously sucks that they didn't get to win this one. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
yeah. Um, you bring up the Puka Nacua. I don't know if you saw there was a cool video that went around of the Rams draft room when they were drafting him and just talking about, it was between McVay and who's the GM, Les Snead or something like that. Yeah. It's pretty cool. If anyone hasn't seen it, go search it up. It's pretty cool. Um, yeah, I think, I'll start with the Rams. We both counted them out. I mean, them and the Texans, like people were talking about these teams as, teams in the running for that first overall pick. And, you know, we probably should have never been saying that about the Rams with Matt Stafford. I think this was a year where, Matt Stafford reminded us who he is. He's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a great player. At the end of the day, this team, the future is bright. I mean, it's fun when these rebuilding teams or you think they're in a rebuild and then it's like no, they actually have like superstars. Offensively, Nakua and Kyron Williams. I mean, that's a heck of a young core to have for the future. Um, Obviously, like you said, Cooper Cup on his way out. Higbee tore his ACL in this game, which sucks. Prayers up to him. Um, so it'll be interesting to see. I think in the next few years, I don't think you need a successor ready yet, but after seeing kind of what happened this year with Jordan Love, he sat for a few years. You got to wonder when Sean McVay starts to kind of get that succession plan going because Stafford is getting up there in age. I think was he 36 this year or he's upper 30s. He could be even older. He
Yeah,
is
I think 36.
35, so he's about to be 36. Yeah. So he's probably still got, few good years left. I can see him kind of going the Aaron Rodgers type route where he's still pretty good up until close to 40. But that's just one thing that I thought of. Like you said, defensively, it's a young unit. I love our boy Russ East, but like he's probably not a NFL starter. So you know, not to dig on him, but I just don't. For a championship winning team, he's probably better in on the sidelines to start. But I think there's a few spots on defense where they need to upgrade, and that's going to come with them just drafting. And I don't know what their pick situation is. I mean, I know
I think
they've
they
been
have
kind of in
all
the
of them now.
trenches. They're good now. Wow.
Yeah.
So they're set then, honestly. Like, this is a team that, they sold their soul for that Super Bowl, and now they've kind of recovered, and now you got a young core too, and now you got all your picks back. So it's gonna be really fun to watch. Um, so props to them. It was a great season. Fun team too, really fun offense, I think, which is, always fun. And then the Lions, it ended up that ineligible receiver, didn't matter because they get their second home playoff game, which is good. I think that's just the world, proving that I don't know what I'm trying to say. Regardless, this is a good I feel like we kind of got off the Lions train for a little bit. Like this is a good team. Like they play really hard. They got playmakers on the defense. Aiden Hutchinson, C.J. Gardner Johnson, Brian Branch. Like they got solid players, and then the offense is just like you said, so efficient. I think Ben Johnson, I feel like he'll end up as the Commanders head coach if I had to guess. Seems kind of the way it's trending, but obviously, that won't be finalized until the season's over in the Lions. They've run the ball so well, but with Montgomery and Gibbs, I mean, you know, outside of Amon Ra, you know, it doesn't like you wouldn't be like, oh my God, this receiving core is so good. But like Josh Reynolds and James, I know Jameson Williams is kind of I don't want to say disappointing. He's still finding his footing, it feels like, in the NFL. But those guys are really solid. Laporta obviously has been huge. I mean, again, another young team that drafted well. Um, people were bashing the Lions draft. I get it. They probably picked some guys in spots they couldn't have, but look how it turned out. I mean, you ended up with guys, playmakers like Laporta, Gibbs. I mean, I don't think they're regretting anything at the end of the day. So heck of a season for the Rams, and excited to watch the Lions keep going because I think they have a very winnable game with the Bucks, who we'll talk about in a sec. This next game, Bills Steelers. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know how much there really is to talk about this one. I feel like this is just kind of a game where a lot of people knew the outcome. I think everyone knew the outcome before it started. Bills are going to win. Allen looked good. Um, it's really Stephon Diggs is just like I know he had 7 catches, but it's like 50 yards a game at this point. It's so that if they lose this weekend, I feel like he might be
Yeah.
asking for a trade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which then it's like, holy cow, what do you do? Because then you look at these other receivers. Kincaid had a good game, but then you got Deontay Hardy, Khalil Shakir is a pretty good player, but then like Latavius Murray, Dawson Knox, like I know Gabe Davis is out, but it's like, oh my God, like it's kind of narrow. James Cook's the dog though. I don't know. I don't really got much to say on this one. Steelers, like they do it again. They made the playoffs. Good season for them. They got a quarterback, decision. I mean, I think it's clear that Pickett's kind of done. So they got to get someone, whether that be, if they really want to contend, you got to move on and try to find a new guy. And it seems like that's the way they're trending. So that'd be good. But that's all I got on this. What do you got?
I'd like to congratulate Russell Wilson on being the Steelers 2024 quarterback. That's all I gotta say. That's definitely happening. And yeah, the Bills, Gabe Davis is a free agent. And like we said, there's some potential turmoil with Diggs that's kind of been building up for a couple of years, but I don't know. Yeah, it feels like something's a little weird there, but the rest of the pieces are good complementary pieces, and they're kind of being used. They're kind of like the Falcons right now in a little bit, where they like use their star as a decoy and then use their complementary pieces as the stars. But
Yeah.
it's kind of working because their complementary pieces are really good. Like I think Shakir's like a really good like third receiver. I think Kincaid's going to become a great tight end. And I think James Cook's a really good running back. So I think they have some guys, but it's like you're right that for this team to really reach its potential, you probably got to get Diggs, 10 to 12 targets a game.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll move on to the last
Um,
game of the slate. A, a depressing one. I mean, holy fuck. I mean, one of the all-time collapses of the season, maybe 10-1 to bounced in the first round. And Baker Mayfield, I mean, he looked like Tom Brady out there. You'd have thought Tom Brady came back for an extra year. 337 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. You know, they had a lot of long plays. I mean, David Moore had a really long reception for a touchdown. Trey Palmer's only catch was a 56-yard touchdown. You know, it wasn't even Evans and Godwin only combined for 93 yards. So they didn't even burn them that much. Um, you know, Hurts, it's not like he had the turnovers. It just was like the offense just could not move. They were 0 for 9 on third down. I mean, that is probably says it all right there. Sirianni, it seems like he's returning, which I can't say. I know a lot of Eagles fans want him gone. I think it would have been insane for them to fire him. I understand why, but I think you got to at least give the guy another year. But I mean, I'll let you take it away. Just a crazy turn of events. Your thoughts on the game, the Eagles season, and what they have to do this offseason.
I mean, I kind of laid out the plan as cut everyone that sucks and get aggressive as you can. Obviously it starts with finding new coordinators offensively and defensively. That's not even a question in my mind.
Yeah,
Um, I think you got to kind of abandon the only drafting the trenches strategy. This team is desperate for a good young cornerback. This team is desperate for a good young linebacker. This team
yeah,
is desperate for um just more good starters who are young and under contract. And you got those guys in the draft. And this team has a decent amount of money, but I don't know. I think they're gonna end up saving most of this money, knowing they're gonna have to pay a Landon Dickerson, pay a Devontae Smith, pay some guys in a couple years. Um, I don't know. You're gonna have to get really good coordinators. Um, Jesse Minter, the DC from Michigan, he may become Michigan's head coach, but if he doesn't become the head coach there, if Harbaugh leaves, then maybe he could be the DC. Maybe if Vrabel could be our DC. Um, I have less names for the offensive coordinator spot. I think most of those guys are head coach type candidates, but could you get, the Dolphins offensive coordinator because he's not the play caller technically?
yeah,
Um, I maybe something like that. I don't know. This is a team that needed to be really good this year because they were always probably going to be slightly worse next year. This is a team that needed to win last year because they were going to be much worse the next year. Just missed opportunities. You can't get on third down. You have no answer for the blitz. You have nothing over the middle of the field. There's just a really badly coached team right now. I'm genuinely was not surprised at all by the outcome of the game. I wasn't even that upset. I mean, it wasn't I wasn't expecting us to play much better than that. We hadn't shown that was what we were for the last month or so. And I don't know where you go from here. I mean, like, this is a tough spot to be in. Um, yeah, you do got to give Sirianni another year probably, but like, again, is the best move for this franchise getting a Ben Johnson? Maybe. I don't know. Um, it's insane to consider it, but like, this is what happens in the NFL. I mean, like, I don't know. I think it would be less crazy to fire Sirianni than it was to fire Vrabel.
yeah. I get
But
that.
I do think it would be pretty crazy. And I think the way you saw everyone stand up for Sirianni goes to show to me how much, the players still respect him and they still want him here. And it could go badly if you fire the coach that they all really like. So that's something else. I'm kind of done. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll talk about the Eagles, but credit to the Bucks. I mean, they came out, you know, I didn't think they were going to put up anything after week 18. I mean, they beat the Panthers 9-0, and then you come out and it was an offensive explosion. I mean, it was insane. So props to them. I mean, they could make some noise. I mean, I think they could. We'll see. Um, Philly, yeah. I mean, you had it last week. You had the prediction for the last few weeks. Like I still did not believe this team was as bad as they were playing. I just thought the star power of the team would pull through, and I mean it didn't. Um, you know, Obviously AJ Brown was out. I don't think that necessarily would have changed anything in this one. You know, it's I think, you bring up with the draft and stuff like that, and I think Howie Roseman's an incredible GM, one of the best in the game. I think in the last year or so, he's gotten caught up with the big name and going after that well-known player. We kind of saw it in the draft a little bit too. I feel like, I mean, he drafted all these, the whole Georgia team. It felt like, and I mean, I don't know. Maybe Ringo was good this year, but I, you know, I guess he was like a fifth rounder, but still, like, you know, the Jalen Carter pick was great. That was obviously he's a stud. But outside of that, it feels like maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, you watch the team more closely than me, but in the last year or so, it's just like none of these guys they brought in have really, made a huge difference. Kelsey, it seems like is going to retire based on everything, the reports and the podcast, and just how emotional he was. Um, which obviously, they got probably the best insurance plan in Dickerson ready to go, but you will need someone to replace him at the guard position.
Right.
The defense, you're going to have to make some moves there. Cornerback, I mean, James Bradbury. Oh my God. I mean, it was funny. The Gilly the Kids video was very funny. I enjoyed that one where he was talking about how Bradbury told him he was ready and, you know, ready for vacation. I think that he put it perfectly. Um, yeah, the secondary needs some work. Obviously, the linebackers probably need some work. The D line is, you know, probably good enough. Um, but yeah, there's work to be done. I think it's just crazy how different, you know, a year ago today, you know, I think everyone, the Eagles were about to go to the Super Bowl and, this team felt unbeatable and not trying to, like just like trying to, compare, not trying to, upset you here. But it's just crazy how quickly things happen in the NFL. I mean, I don't think anyone saw this coming. Um, they do still have, a lot of good players on this team. I mean, Hurts obviously. Um, I feel like he's kind of started to get like maybe he was just a little overhyped last year and is he as good as some of these guys? Probably not, but he's still an incredible quarterback. AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are incredible. Gallardo's one of the best tight ends. The O line's still great. The D line, you got Jalen Carter, like I mentioned. Like, there's a lot of talent on this team. It's not all doom and gloom. I think the loss of the coordinators was bigger than people realized. And I think this defense is just old right now. And at the end of the year, I think, it just caught up to them. In the beginning of the year, they were probably a little more fresh, able to, make the play here. But I think, the wear and tear of an NFL season clearly was just too much for some of these guys on this defense who are, up there in age and have played a lot in the NFL. So will be interesting to see what they do. I like what you said about, just they have to get younger on defense and just more athletic, I think. And, you know, Bradbury and, is Slay a free agent or is he, under contract?
He's under contract, but he's probably going to get cut.
Okay. So fresh corners next year for Philadelphia, which will be good. So we can move on, unless you got any other thoughts.
I'm ready to move on.
All right. Yeah. a good breakdown. I mean, we've already talked about all these teams, so I mean, I don't think that our predictions will necessarily last too long, but that's fine. Texans, Ravens. I'll start. I'm going to pick the Ravens. Don't let their bye forget you. Don't let the bye forget just how good this team was this year. I even myself has doubted this team, but the way they played at the end of the year was just, I mean, insane. They were just beating up on the best of the best. They played Houston week one, so it's tough to take out anything out of that matchup because that was Stroud's first start. I think it was raining too. Like, I don't know, but look, Stroud can get this done. I agree with what you said earlier. I just think this Ravens defense, we saw him dice up the Cleveland one though. So now I'm talking myself into Stroud a little bit. I think the spread in this is plus 9.5 or minus 9.5 for Baltimore, which I think is I would bet, Houston plus 9.5. I don't think Houston's getting blown out. I think it'll be a pretty close game. So I still will pick the Ravens. So I just think, Lamar, I think this is his kind of year and his shot to finally push through and get to the Super Bowl. So I think this team is well positioned to do so. And Houston's kind of magical season comes to an end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I'm not counting out the Texans, man. I said it, and I think what happens here is the Ravens go up early, and then the Texans fight back, and ends up being a pretty close game. I think the Ravens are going to come out, well rested, well prepared. Lamar maybe has a big play, but then it's like, and it kind of looks like it's going to be a blowout, but then the Texans just keep fighting because they're the
Yeah.
Texans and they have no quit. They're really well coached. D'Amico Ryan's a great coach. Not something I touched on a ton earlier. But yeah, I still ultimately am gonna go to the Ravens here. It just feels like their defense is so much better than the Texans defense. The one thing I will say is if the Ravens go down in this game, uh-oh, because their tackles, particularly Ronnie Stanley, as weirdly as I'm saying that sounds, has struggled this year. And the Texans edge rushers have been pretty good. I could imagine a world where they just don't have enough time if they're constantly throwing it. It is Lamar who's super hard to sack,
Yeah.
obviously. But I could see that being a scenario. That being said, yeah, I'm going with the Ravens here.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty close though.
Yeah.
And then the night game is the Niners, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the Niners against the Packers. Similar spread here. Um, I think, yeah, I'm rooting for the Packers very hard in this one. But I just don't see the Packers. I feel like the magic kind of runs out a little bit. I think the Niners, like we said with Ravens, are going to come out really well prepared, really pissed off. This is obviously a super, well coached, well prepared team. They're coming off a bye. They rested a lot of their starters in week 18. Maybe they're a bit rusty, but I just don't feel like that's the way this Niners team is going to come out. Maybe a Cowboys team would come out
Yeah.
rusty, but I don't think that's how the Niners are built. Um, yeah, I think the Packers might be one cornerback short here in terms of maybe you're putting Jair on Ayuk a lot, but then Debo's getting open, or Kittle's getting open, or McCaffrey out of the backfield, or McCaffrey running, or some combination of any of their elite playmakers going off. It's also the playoffs, so I'd expect them to use Debo in the run game a little bit more. They don't want to pull that out a ton in the regular season, but now, with the chips down, I think he'll probably get 5 to 10 carries maybe.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going with the Niners here. I unfortunately think they probably cover the spread. Just yeah, I think the Packers are a good team, but they're not most well-built team and complete roster in the NFL. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm going with the Niners here. What about you?
I mean, I'm picking San Francisco. I'm just gonna say, like, this is like if they don't make the Super Bowl this year,
Yeah,
like they are like that is a disaster. Like it is wide open for them. Like you're playing the 7 seed in the first round, and then you're gonna play the Lions are a good team, but either them or the Bucks, and it's just like it feels like they should just steamroll to the Super Bowl. Like they really should. Like And now that I'm saying that, they'll probably get bounced today. But they really should I think the only team that should really, the Lions would be a good fight, but like I still think they beat them, and then whoever is in the Super Bowl, I think would be a formidable opponent. But they should be able to get to the Super Bowl, especially now that I know the Eagles obviously kind of downturned, but for a while it was 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles. That's what we thought, and now they're the lone wolf standing. So it's there's no reason why they shouldn't make the Super Bowl, in my opinion. And also, like, I mean, this team. Now I'm just talking. I'm not even talking about the game because I do think they'll win by like 2 touchdowns in this, kind of like you said. Um, I just think offensively it's such a tough attack, and defensively, I don't think there's as much, I don't know if wishy-washiness is or just like inconsistency, I guess is what I was looking for with as the Cowboys. Like you said, the Cowboys are more, boom or bust, and we saw them kind of get cooked at times. Whereas I feel like San Francisco, the Baltimore game was pretty rough, but this isn't a defense that really gets, destroyed and there's not really any tough corner match. Like there's good receivers, but like Travarius Ward and them should be able to handle them regardless. If this San Francisco team doesn't win a Super Bowl with this young core and just this group of guys of CMC, Kittle, Debo, Trent Williams, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, I think it would be one of the biggest disappointments in NFL history. I think this is as loaded as a roster as we've kind of seen in recent time, just in general for the last few years. Obviously, they made the one Super Bowl, but if this team can't get it done, this should be, I think, obviously Purdy is a great quarterback. I do think he's pretty good, but like if this team just had an elite quarterback these last few years, I know, cap wise it might not have worked out with everyone, but they probably would, we'd be talking them as a dynasty, and it's just been quarterback play that's held them back. So that's a little tangent of a rant there, but you know, it'll be interesting to see if Purdy is good enough to get it done because, you know, they should be able to get it done. Moving along, Bucks Lions. This is an interesting game, honestly. I'm kind of torn on it. I don't know what the line is. I'm sure the Lions are favored at home. I mean, that
About
place was
6.
rocking. 6?
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. I'll start with you here, Dev. What do you think?
I'm going with the Bucks.
Okay.
Um, I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I don't know why I said. I'm about to explain why. Um, it feels weird is what I was trying to say. It feels weird that the Bucks are potentially an NFC championship team. But the Lions really struggle against the blitz. It makes sense. Goff isn't some elite play extension type quarterback. And we saw it with the Eagles when you have a really good offensive line. Sometimes the best answer is just to send one more guy than they have, so someone is going to get there. Um, you know, they're good at drawing up unblocked blitzers. It feels like this could be a game where Goff just struggles a little bit. Baker's got
Yeah.
some magic. He's playing pissed off. I think Evans has a big game. I don't think they have anyone that can really stop Evans. I feel like the Bucks are kind of in a good position in terms of the matchups here to win this game. They don't run the ball well, but that's kind of the only thing the Lions do well on defense anyway, stop the run. They struggle against the pass. So I think they're set up well to pass the ball, maybe all over the yard, blitz Goff, get in his head, and they have a good run defense as well. So I I feel like the Bucks are gonna win this one. I do.
You're kind of talking me into the Bucks a little bit. I had to look. So these two teams did play earlier in the year. The Lions won 20-6. And just some devil's advocate, Jared Goff in that game, 30 for 44, 353 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. So
Fair enough.
Jared, he got it done. And that was, no Jahmyr Gibbs that game as well. Amon Ra had a huge game. I think we could see that again. And I will pick the Lions. I think last week just kind of makes us forget how inconsistent this Bucks team was all season. Like this team was teetering in and out of, contention and the first place in the division, and they barely beat the Panthers. And I think last week, if Baker comes out playing like that, like they'll win. They will maybe go to the Super Bowl, like because they have the playmakers. the defense has, a lot of experienced guys, a lot of talent. Winfield Jr., Vita Vea, White and Levante David. Like the names are there, and the talent is there. Um, you know, and they've played for. I mean, the last 2 weeks they've given up 9 total points. So this defense, it seems like they've probably come together and kind of glued and meshed. Obviously, Todd Bowles, one of the better coordinators or leaders of the defense. He's obviously not the coordinator there anymore. But I'm going to pick the Lions. You know, I think they'll just get it done. I think at home is a huge advantage for them. You know, I think it just plays in their favor, and I think Jared Goff will just get it done. I don't know. It's kind of just one of those things. I think they'll be able to run the ball pretty well. Um, I don't know. I guess the Bucks are pretty good against the run, but I don't know. I'm just rambling. I think the Lions will just get it done. I know one of those things. And final game of the week, and I think the one everyone's most excited for, Chiefs Bills. I would assume it's on CBS, but maybe not if it's
I
the
think
late game.
MVP.
NBC. Okay, I guess that tracks. Let me see. No, it's CBS. Yeah.
CBS. Oh, my
Um,
bad.
they no, you're good. I just it feels like Jim Nance and Tony are always doing
Oh,
the
yeah.
Chiefs, man. I don't know, Jim. I Tony Romo. This is a sidetrack, but Tony Romo, I feel like has gotten a lot of hate in the media this year. I still think he's one of the better color commentators in the game. I do
Agreed.
enjoy his, and I think the pairing of him and Nance, like their chemistry is really good. Um, sorry, that was just the sports broadcasting nerd in me coming out. But
Love it.
um, Chiefs Bills. I think these two teams have met twice in the playoffs since Mahomes and Allen have been there. Chiefs are 2-0, but this time it's at, I don't know what the hell is it, Highmark Stadium or something like that. I don't know what the hell their
Yeah, I
stadium's
think
called.
that's right.
Um, I think it is Highmark. Yeah, yeah, Highmark Stadium. But it's in Buffalo. The Bills have been on a roll. I mean, they've had to have won. I wonder how many games it is at this point in a row. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Or no, six. The Eagles, man, they took the Bills down somehow. That's crazy.
That's
Um,
insane.
maybe that means the I don't know what I'm saying. Maybe it means who am I trying to say is fraudulent? The Bills are
Bills.
fraudulent. Jesus. They played earlier in the year, 2017. Buffalo won. Pretty competitive game. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this one? Pacheco, it looks like was out for that game. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of said it earlier. I'm going with the Chiefs.
Like,
I don't want to doubt playoff Mahomes anymore. Like, I don't know. He's only basically lost to Brady and in the Super Bowl and one time to Burrow. Like, I don't know. The dude is really impressive, obviously. His resume at this point in his career is pretty ridiculous. So I don't know if, and it feels like everyone's hyping up the Bills. It feels like we're back on the Bills Super Bowl train. So I just lean, my gut feeling is the Chiefs. Schematically, I think these teams are both gonna actually try to run the ball and support their quarterbacks a little bit. And then it ends up becoming a game where, the quarterbacks are making plays. I think Mahomes, I just trust him a little bit more. I trust their defense a little bit more. I trust their offensive line a little bit more. The only thing I don't trust more is the playmakers. But like we said, like they're not even getting Diggs involved that much. Is Gabe
yeah.
Davis even playing?
No, he's out. He's
He's
ruled out.
out. So yeah, that's big, especially with the lack of Diggs involvement. So it's like I don't know. I'm a little worried about this Bills playmaker group as well, which would in on paper be their one big advantage over the Chiefs. So, uh, yeah, I'm going with the Chiefs here. What about you?
I'm a Chiefs guy, man. I've been a big Pat Mahomes guy, big fan of this team. Yeah, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on the Chiefs again for sure. Yeah, I just think, I think the whole road playoff game, I think it's a big deal, but at the same time, I think it's been blown out of proportion. Like this is still Patrick Mahomes at the end of the day, guys. Like he'll get it done in an opposing in an opposing stadium. Like I don't think it's it's not like Arrowhead is one of the best home field advantages out there, but it's not like, he's lost there twice in the playoffs. It's not like, it's been, total pure domination. Well, I guess it has, but I don't know. I guess I'm trying to say is I don't think it's as big a deal as people have made it seem. Like you said, I think, Josh has been playing great. Is that almost bad in a way though? Because he's law of due has him due for like 3 picks. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading into that too much, but I think Josh is great. I think James Cook is the difference maker in this one. Is would be the reason why Buffalo wins. He's been running the ball great. He's been great, in the receiving game. If he kind of controls this game, I think Buffalo wins. If the Chiefs find a way to stop him, I think they'll win easily. To be honest, I don't think we like you said, Diggs. Maybe this is his kind of break back out week, but like it just feels like he's kind of just like stuck in like 6 catches, 50 yards a week at this point, which is so weird. Um, yeah, and like you said, I think defensively the Chiefs are definitely better than Buffalo. Buffalo's played pretty well, but I think the Chiefs are better. And yeah, I just like you said, this could be very well one of those games where it's who has the ball last. And I can't wait. I mean, I'm super excited for this game. Um, yeah, it's kind of all I got. We're both riding Chiefs. Probably means the Bills will win. Um, but oh well. And yeah, I think with that we can move on to some NBA talk. Um, big week. Pascal Siakam traded the Pacers. Package going back to Toronto included Bruce Brown, uh, Jordan Nora, and 3 first rounders. So a pretty good haul for the Raptors. Um, I think he was maybe the last guy from that championship team to be there. So a truly new age in Toronto. Your thoughts on the deal, the pairing of Halliburton and Siakam, and you know, yeah, just your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I like this trade for both sides. Quick note on the picks themselves. One of them is like the least valuable of 4 teams' picks, all of which are like playoff teams. So it's basically going to be like a late 20s pick this year, the Pacers pick this year, and then the Pacers pick in 2 years. So not the most valuable first round picks themselves. You'll probably be able to flip Bruce Brown for another first round pick to a contending team. We'll talk about some fits for him in a little bit. Um, but besides that, Siakam is just the perfect fit next to Halliburton. He's a good play finisher. He can be a screener. He can be a cutter. He can run some of his own offense. And arguably, most importantly, he is a good defensive player, a good big wing, which this team was so desperately in need of. Um, and they played last night. They played the Trailblazers, who suck, but they lost. It was their first game. Halliburton's just coming back from an injury. They didn't shoot very well, whatever. I'm not worried about the loss, but what I will say is it looked like Halliburton and Siakam really, they had some chemistry. They knew how to play off of each other. And then you've got shooters like Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, who's a good two-way player. Um, I just think they've got enough pieces. Like probably not a contending team, but they're a win a series potentially type team. And they're young and they still are only going to be getting better. So I like this move for them. As for the Raptors, you're getting picks, you're rebuilding, you're probably going to get another pick for Bruce Brown. This makes sense. This is what you got to do. Like this team was never going to compete with Siakam as the best player and Anunoby as the third best player. Like it clearly just didn't work. Now you're looking forward to a future of Scotty Barnes and um probably Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett and whoever else you're able to draft in the next couple years. Do you want to talk about the Anunoby trade too,
Yeah,
or
go right into it.
okay? Yeah, just because I was thinking about the Anunoby trade, obviously with the Raptors. I'll start by saying when the trade first happened, I was like, oh wow, this is a great deal for the Raptors because I thought the pick involvement would be like a couple of first round picks, but it ended up just being a second round pick. Um, That being said, I still really, really like this deal for the Raptors for the main reason ultimately being I think Emmanuel Quickly is going to be a great third option type player on a really good team. He's like a I think he's going to be an automatic like 18-5-5 guy who's a good defensive player, can play a lot of minutes, doesn't, sit out games, doesn't have a huge ego, just a perfect complementary starter on a good team. I think RJ is still young. He's on a pretty, cheap contract compared to what Anunoby is going to get paid. He's looked good in Toronto so far. And you're getting the Pistons second round pick, which is a second round pick, but that will be probably the 31st pick in the draft. So that's not nothing.
Yeah.
Um, as for the Knicks, they've looked really good since this trade. You know, they really needed less guys who are looking to score and more guys who are willing to just fit in. And now you've kind of settled on this lineup with, Brunson and Randall, with Anunoby and DiVincenzo, who are both great complementary pieces. It sucks you had to give up quickly, but you probably weren't going to want to pay him what other teams were paying him in the offseason to be a backup player. So I get it. I really do. I think it really hurts to trade quickly as, someone who loves Emmanuel Quickly and loved watching him on the Knicks, but I think there's some other trade targets they could have. They have some movable salary in Evan Fournier's $19 million deal, so they can get up to about 20 to 25 million dollar salary. They still have a lot of picks. They still have excess first round picks moving forward. So I'm confident that they can make another move if they want to. They look good right now. They could potentially still be in on a superstar trade if someone becomes available. And you still got Brunson, who I think is going to be a great. He's built for the playoffs and he's having a great regular season. So I liked both of these trades for both teams involved. All three. Well, I mean, the Raptors were involved in both trades, so just three teams, but I liked all
Yeah.
three of them. Um, Ultimately, I think the Knicks are still a bit short from being contenders, but you're getting better. You're getting a guy that fits more. You're giving yourself a better chance. Like, I don't think trades should be judged from the lens of does this make us a true contender? And if not, it's not worth it at all. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that black and white. I mean, like, you're gonna have to pay Anunoby a lot probably, but he's a great fit with this team and he's already making them a lot better. It's like that's worth it if you don't have to give up any major draft capital and RJ Barrett who wasn't working out in New York and Emmanuel Quickly who again, like I said, you probably weren't gonna re-sign him at the number he was gonna get on the open market. So
Yeah.
I get it. I do. I don't know. I love when NBA trades work out how I imagined them. Uh, I I texted, Griffin and I's friend, Luke, who's a big Knicks fan. I said, I think Quickly and Fournier will get traded for Anunoby at some point, and it ended up being Quickly and RJ plus one pick. So I kind of called it here. I'm a genius. What can I say? But no. Yeah, I like these trades.
Yeah. I mean, as I've said on this podcast before, I leave the NBA expertise to Dev. But real quick, I think the Pacers trade I like for them. I think Halliburton is clearly a superstar. It's good to get him another piece like Siakam early on, and just kind of see if it fits. If it doesn't, you can maybe not sign him. But I think the expectation on both sides is probably a long term partnership. And like you said, they got good surrounding cast. So this is a team that, like you said, probably not going to be, you know, can they win a playoff series? Yeah, I think they can win a playoff series. Can they, go and win 3, 4 playoff series and win the finals this year? Probably not. But ultimately, I do think it's still a really good team, and a good move for them. Good move for the Raptors, like you said. The Knicks trade, as an NBA casual, I was kind of like, whoa, that seems like a lot with RJ and quickly, but um, you know, like you said, the OG pairing seems like it really fits. Seems like they're kind of in some trade talks with Quentin Grimes, just trying to get another guard there. So, Brunson doesn't have to take on so much of the load, even though, Bibbs is still going to play him like 1,000 minutes a game. But just get someone there. to help out, which I think would be good for them. But yeah, I think the Knicks' problem, and it's like I don't want to sound like a Knicks hater, but like I just still don't know if this team is going to be good enough to win a championship. Like I don't know if Brunson is good enough to be the best player on a championship winning team. As good as he is, um, they would really have to, it would have to be one of those teams where it's just like an unstoppable, five group of guys, and they're a good team. I think they can, go out and win another playoff series. They won a playoff series last year, right, against the Cavs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think this is a more than capable team of winning a playoff series, maybe even two. Again, I just don't know if they can win the finals yet. I don't know, and it's just like a tough situation because it's like, will they be able to with this core? Because you're going to end up locking all these guys down, and it's just like I don't know. You look at the top three teams in the East right now. The Celtics with Jason Tatum, and the supporting cast of Brown, Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and then you got the Bucks with Giannis and Dame, and Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez are great players, and then obviously the 76ers. You got probably it's Embiid. I would imagine is the MVP favorite right now. Yeah.
I think the odds have it as Jokic, but most of the like
Okay.
ladder or the leaderboards or whatever have Embiid, so
Okay.
pretty 50.
It's like close, but yeah. I mean,
Close.
Embiid's
Yeah.
been going crazy. Maxi's a stud. Like, I just don't think Brunson is. Him and Maxi are probably on a similar level. Brunson maybe a little better than Maxi.
Yeah, I
But
would.
again,
Yeah, they. Yeah.
yeah.
So, go
Um,
ahead.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say, obviously that's the Sixers number two. Obviously, you still got to beat. So I just don't know if they've got that superstar. I think it's kind of another spot similar to what the Cavs are in, where it's like they got a really good team, a really good group of guys, and I know they've been playing well recently. Um, but is it good enough to win the finals? We don't really know yet. So we'll see. I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. You know, I think the just competitiveness right now in the NBA is great. It feels like, come playoff time, I think, it's going to be really fun, especially in the East is a dogfight, but the West too. I mean, the Timberwolves are the one seed. I didn't even realize that. That's insane. With the Thunder as the two seed. I mean, pretty crazy. The Clippers have been playing really well. The Lakers are a disaster, which is crazy. Not crazy. I mean, it's kind of predictable, but oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about with the NBA?
Um, just two things quickly. First
Yeah.
of all, LeBron is coming to Philly. It's happening. Um, but second of all, just one trade piece I really, really like for basically every team that's in the contention to make a trade. So that being the Knicks, the Sixers, and the Lakers. I really like Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's when you look at him, he's a 6'5", 230-pound point guard, which is just in itself really rare to get a point guard that has that size, a guy that can truly play point guard. And you add on, he's a 40% three-point shooter. He's a stout defender who, with that size, can defend multiple positions. He's a good passer. He's been willing to play a six-man role on a good team. He's under contract, but it's not a super expensive contract. And he's not going to take that much to get him. People are talking about DeJounte Murray, who is at a similar salary number for this year, but then his salary goes up even more. He is probably the most overrated defensive player in the league, where he's talked about as some, all defense caliber player, but you watch, he's a traffic cone. He's not a good defensive player. Um, and offensively, he's a good player, but he kind of really needs the ball in his hands, which all of these teams, especially, the Lakers, Sixers, and Knicks, it's like, why would they trade for someone who needs the ball in their hand? Trade more for someone who's more expensive. And I honestly think Malcolm Brogdon's a better player at this point. Definitely a better fit. Um, he's been my dream for the Sixers for a while. Could really just be Marcus Morris, Jaden Springer, a promising young prospect, and a pick or two, which really wouldn't hurt the Sixers in terms of their cap space or their draft capital, but it really gives them a great chance to win a championship this season. Um, Same thing with the Lakers. Obviously besides the championship odds, I think this could kind of save their season. It could honestly be a Rui Hachimura straight up just because he's a younger player who the Trailblazers could see as a long-term, high quality role player, whereas Brogdon, who's 32 or whatever, isn't going to be there in 5 years, obviously. Um, you know, I think he could, in a way, save their season. And with the Knicks, they really need one more shot creator who can play at the end of games. It looks like Grimes might be on his way out. So again, Grimes and Fournier to match the salary straight up could be a trade that makes sense. Like all these trades seem to make sense to me. They match up salary wise, they match up fit wise. They all have a need for Brogdon, but he wouldn't have to do too much. Um, I'll just talk about my Sixers really quickly here. I think with the Sixers, it's like you don't, obviously you have Embiid and Maxey are going to be the two main guys. They're putting up basically 60 points a night, which is ridiculous. Um, but you need, you have Tobias, who's a bit of an inconsistent third option. I still think he can be the third option, but you really want a fourth guy who can create his own shot. So then come playoff time, you can always have two of these guys in at all times of the game and basically always have two shot creators with, Batum, who's been a great role player, Marcus Morris, who might be in the trade, but has been a good role player. Covington's been solid. Melton has been solid. Pat Bev, as much as he's kind of a meme in a way, but he's been excellent. I mean, excellent. Great two-way player. Paul Reed's been a good backup center. I mean, I'm gushing about this team because I'm really excited about their prospects. I really hope this is the year Embiid is able to stay healthy for the playoffs and perform at the level we all know he's capable of. Um, I just think he's too good of a player to never have a great playoff run,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to happen at some point soon. So those are my thoughts on the NBA. If you have any thoughts on Brogdon or any of these other guys, feel free to add on, but I'm mostly done.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think you bring up a good point. I think the Knicks would be a great fit for him. I think that'd be a great piece to have and would kind of fit with the vibe they got going on there too. So yeah, I mean, I think you covered it well. I agree. The Sixers, feels like they got to make a run at some point. They're just too talented, and Maxi's really come on, and it's a fun team. I mean, I think with Maxi's emergence, at least with the Simmons disaster and the Harden disaster, Maxey was still playing well, but I think seeing how he's evolved this year and just kind of has taken on that star role is so key for the team and just something to look forward to. And yeah, I mean, that's all I got. So if you want to wrap things up, that's good with me.
Yeah, the one thing I will say about Maxey, which I forgot to bring up, they are playing him a ridiculous amount of minutes. I mean, it's like every game that's close, he's playing like 42 minutes. They're mean to Tyrese, poor Tyrese Maxey, although he loves basketball. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to this point, make sure you like and subscribe. Another good episode. Excited for divisional playoffs. We'll be back next week talking about what happened in the divisional round.
Yep.
Maybe some more trades that might happen in the NBA. We're getting close to that trade deadline. And we'll obviously be previewing conference championship games. We got spring training coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Is that about a month and a half away, something like
Yeah,
that?
pitchers and catchers report in I mean, for the Dodgers, they report in like 2, 3 weeks because they're playing in like Korea.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, exciting time in the sports world. College basketball heating up.
Yeah.
Getting excited for March Madness and conference tournaments and whatnot. So, you know, great time in the sports world. Great time to be plugged into the best sports podcasts out there. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.